Okay, so I'll explain what's going to happen here. We had multiple issues that were brought up during the different talks. את רוצה לפתוח את Spectogram? Okay. And I collected a few polarizing statements. So I'm going to, and if you've been to the conference before, you know how it works. I'm going to say things that refer to things that were discussed through the day. And they're deliberately framed in a polarizing way. So they are the kind of things that would make some people say, we couldn't get the tapes to work? Okay. Good luck with that. So this would be the side of definitely yes. This would be the side of no way in the world, and we'll also have a sign in the middle to for those who are kind of in between. So let's start with something. So we don't have the. Why did you invest in nails if nothing comes out of them? Let's actually start with something that refers to the.
It's from the first year of ISVIS.
So let's just make sure that it works well from right to left. So this is the minus and this is the plus. Okay, just wanted to make sure I'm getting it right. So let's use the last talk. Okay. So okay. So okay. So the statement is this: visualization should always follow the text directionality. Visualization should always follow the text directionality, meaning if it's completely from, if the text is from right to left, the visualization should be from right to left. If it's from left to right, it should be from left to right. If you completely agree, stand here. If you completely disagree, stand here. And I'll repeat the statement. Visualization should always follow the text directionality. So nobody actually thinks that this is okay. And so Jer, you're kind of in the middle, but I'll go to you first. And
yeah, I just stood beside her because she knows.
Okay, so why do you stand where you stand? Don't touch the mic. I'm interviewing. I'll be tough.
Because there are no things that they always at first, but we have some visualization that it not depend of language. For example, I think about example. Maybe you help me.
Okay, plus and minus. Okay, yeah, you're welcome to join the stage, by the way. Yeah, because seriously, you have things to add here. But I'll get back to you. Why do you stand where you stand?
I think that some of the math stuff are easier to do in English, especially if you're using ready-made material. So I wouldn't just invert it, and sometimes it's an annoyance to read this stuff in Hebrew.
Okay, that was a starter one. Let's go for something a bit more polarizing. Yes, please.
Because there are conventions, and there is a way people used to read things. Graphs usually you read from left to right. If you do it the other way around, people won't understand it. It's not like intuitively. Also in Israel. Like when I worked a few years in Calculist and we did infographics, we always did the y-axis on the left, so people will understand. Otherwise, it's really confusing. So, that.
So the statement is completely wrong. Okay, so I'll go for something a bit more polarizing. A statement that was made by one of the speakers. I'm not going to say who it was, but it was something along the lines of emotion recognition is mainly fraudulent. Emotion recognition is mainly fraudulent. I'll translate. זיהוי רגשות הוא בעיקרו שקרי ורמאות. So if you completely agree with this statement, let's say if you said that statement, you might agree with it, you might stand over here. And if you disagree with this statement, and I think some of the speakers have used emotion recognition in their talks, you would stand over here. So,
that was a clarification question. Do you mean automated emotion recognition or human emotion recognition?
I think we're talking about automated. Okay? Okay, and what's happening here is actually a part of what should happen. So if somebody is being convincing, you might walk towards them. If someone is really, they don't know what they're talking about, you might actually be even less convinced. So you can, but Jer, you stand here accidentally. What makes you think that emotion recognition is mainly fraudulent?
I don't know. I said the word fraudulent as soon as I
don't touch the mic.
As soon as I said it, I knew that it was like not quite the word that I wanted. But you know, I think that there's two things. First of all, a lot of the times it's being applied to text where meaning is purposely obscured. So thinking about Twitter, I mean, how many of us are actually honest on Twitter? And then the second thing is that it just gets down to this idea that you can, well, I'm probably going to say the same thing again, but the idea that, so that I showed you a sentiment map of New York City. Like, that is not a sentiment map of New York City. It's a sentiment analysis map of Twitter in New York City, and it's as much an exposure of the failings of the algorithm as it is how people are behaving. And so I've sat through many presentations where people try to sell sentiment analysis, and I've never seen convincing arguments that it does any better than, even close to better than what would happen is if you sat down with somebody and asked them some ethnographic questions.
Okay, strong statements. I'll be back with you later. Okay. Anybody wants to respond to Jer?
Yes. Again, I think the distinction between is it human generated or is it automated, that's where it becomes interesting. And my opinion is more to this side, because the work I presented was based on letting experts, human experts, analyze and tag conversation as angry conversations, and then building the computer algorithm to try to predict the next ones. And on that job, I don't know if I'm gonna convince you on that, but it actually got to a pretty good score of being able kind of like to pick up the attributes and say, yeah, we're kind of like getting it when people are angry based on what the experts told us.
Okay, so the experts analyzed, and then the algorithm picked on that data. Obviously, when we're talking about emotion analysis, or any computer analysis, at some point there was a human in the process.
Yeah, a narrow task in a given context, you know, it's not like a machine can tell what is the emotion of New York, right? It's not on that scale. And I think being able like to be more precise on what it is, the task in hand, what's the context, we're gonna get better results. We're not replacing humans with machines. So dystopia is not here yet, okay, to that level.
Cool. If you're convinced, like if you're going like yes, you should kind of take a small step towards her. Yes.
I think it's a matter of aggregate. So on an individual basis, probably it is right most of the time because we get it right, because the person says what he thinks. When you aggregate it up, it doesn't make any sense most of the time. Regardless of the scale, it usually gets it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying, except that trained systems, when they fail dramatically, right? And that's, we see the image recognition stuff is probably the most obvious, where if the computer doesn't understand that it's a sheepdog, it's probably not going to say that it's a German Shepherd, it's going to say that it's a spoon on a table. And the same thing can happen with with emotional analysis. So when in the context you're describing, I think a failure like that is not necessarily super harmful. But if these things were to be, say, tried to be applied in a medical context, then they are really, really harmful. And so that's one of the things I'm thinking about.
Can I add something?
Yes.
So there's all the whole part.
Okay. Shout.
Shout, yeah.
There's the whole part of whether NLP, like natural language processing, is good at this, getting it accurately or not. So I'll put this aside. I have a lot of stuff to say about that. But there's the one that I think relates to what the talk about Star Trek was trying to say. So I kind of, when you said that, that's what was in my mind, because I saw at the time that the customers that are looking at the KPIs of sentiment are looking at them because they want to push them up. And then they look at them and then they do actions to affect them to go up. And you could think of social media, so you can just erase all the comments. Okay. You can just erase all the comments, and then it goes up like 5%, 10%.
Yes.
Yeah, so, or just block the user.
So where would you stand? Over here. Okay, so we have an emotion analysis hater in the room. Let's go on. That's a good spot to go on. Another statement: visualizing AI is a losing battle. Visualizing AI is a losing battle. What does the statement mean? It means that we can try to visualize it, but it would become so unexplainable fast that we pretty much don't stand the chance. If you agree with the statement, that you think that, yeah, we're not going to make it, then you stand here. But if you think we can really visualize it and everything that AI does is visualizable, you would stand over there. Okay? So I would go to Eyal, who has spoke about this topic, and it seems to be very hopeful about what visualization can do with AI. So tell us about it.
I just gave a talk about this. So what's the question?
The question is, do you think, if you stand here, it means that you think that we'll be able to visualize everything that happens in AI. If you think that it's a losing battle, that it would become more complex and more complex and more complex, and we won't be able to understand, you would stand over here. So do you want to think again about where you're standing?
So these are complex models, but by definitions, explanations are simplifications. And if we can explain human concepts and ideas, I think we should strive also to explain the decisions of the AI. So you don't want to understand each neuron what it does, but you can get an overall picture, a simplistic picture that can give you the gist of the decision.
And it would continue that going forward?
Yeah, so we're seeing it, more and more emphasis is put on this, both because of the criticality of the systems and because of transparency and taking care of bias.
This is hopeful. Not everybody is very hopeful.
I didn't want to move.
Okay. So who's less hopeful and want to share their despair about this topic?
I don't have enough knowledge about it to really, I'm more, yeah.
This is what's nice about this experiment. You stand where you stand and you need to be accountable for where you stand. So, Jer.
I'm not gonna. I just didn't want to move.
Okay, why do you not want to move on such an important topic? You should take a stand and make a move.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I've at least tried to read some papers that are trying to understand the mathematical basis of why these things do what they do, and there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty there to explain the core logic of these systems, and they will get bigger and more complex, and we can do a pretty good job to explain why it made a decision on one of the images it trained on, but past that, we see examples where you can change one pixel in an image and have it, and so I think often we can do our best to try to guess at what the system is gonna, why it's made the decision, but I'm not sure that we can ever come to we can't reverse engineer it. That's why they work.
Yeah, but isn't the goal to understand why artificial general intelligence works the way that it does? Like, aren't you supposed to, like, your distance to visualizing what was done there is your distance to understanding how, like, your mind actually works, which is, like, we're very much distant from there, but, like, as we grow better in, like, models of, like, AGI in general, then we can visualize them better. Like, that's the way that I see it. This is not my area of expertise really, but, they'll get more complex at the same time. So we're going to be chasing this thing. Do they get complex as we go along with it? Like, as we understand one model, it gets more complex to the next one, and then we can't understand the one that was previous to it?
So we have more and more complex models, but I don't know anything about strong AI. I'm only familiar with weak AI. So do you know the difference? So weak AI is essentially machine learning from examples, and strong AI or artificial general intelligence is something that I don't know even how to define. Will a computer be as smart as a human? Actually, I did offer my definition. I call it the Murray-Poppins criterion. When you will agree to leave your children for half a day with the AI and come back and they've not hurt, maybe they also learned something new, maybe that would be a good criteria. But the thing is also we have, these machines driving vehicles. The thing is that 99% of the time everything is okay, but the problem is to deal with the baltamim, the unexpected, So.
If they don't run over humans, how would they learn, right?
No. I'm just saying. No. I'm saying they learn from mistakes. They're now there's now systems to generate more data so they can learn better. Like, there's literally a company that's dedicated to creating fake data about, like, possible situations for AI, for autonomous vehicles, for them to learn faster. I don't know.
Okay, enough about AI. Yes, please. Yes, we need the microphones because it's also recorded. So think about what you're saying now.
I just thought that maybe trying to visualize AI is kind of creating a language to communicate with the computer, and it's just like a language we create between humans, because I don't know what's going on in your brain, but we are trying to make a common language, and maybe that's why we need to be careful by framing it like the I don't know about, maybe it's connected to the topic of the colonialization of space, like the image we created is kind of blocking us from understanding, but I think we're trying, and it's I don't think we should don't believe in it because we're communicating.
That's a good note to go for the next question. The next question is, where is it? Okay, maps are too dominant in visualizing inequality. Maps are too dominant in visualizing inequality. Agree is over here. If you stand here, is saying yes, we should we keep on looking at maps to understand inequality. It's not the way to go. There should be other ways. Maps are overrepresented here. And if you stand over here, you're saying that, no, we're not looking at enough maps. Like, maps are the way. Like, we should look from the sky to the ground and then understand, like, inequality, because it's in the map. Okay, now we have a nice distribution, which makes for an argument. Unsurprisingly, on this side of the bar, we have the map proponents. Okay, go ahead.
Of course not. If you move from like cognitive map, mental maps, which I think you show something about it through using real geographical maps, all those kinds of maps are a very strong medium for discussing inequality. And
is space the arbiter of inequality? And like, that is the kind of the lens through which we should always look at inequality?
No. For me, as urban sociologist, space and society are linked together. So, and I try to present that it's one texture. So for me, it's bounded. But if you speak about mental maps, like the kids that are, so you can see the way they perceive themselves and the spatial society, not the spatial geography around them, which is cool.
You stand here as well, surprisingly.
I think that there's like tons more to map that we haven't mapped. But if you're asking if this is the only aspect of inequality, no, of course. Like, there's inequality in jobs and in wealth that are not only in space, but in your ability to move up in life. Upward mobility, you can't map on a map, right? You can map some of the features of it on a map, but some of it goes in different directions in terms of how much you earn more and things like that. It's not, there's different subjects, but
you stand here because you feel we should use more maps in speaking about inequality.
Yes, definitely. I don't think that we have started mapping what we need to map as a society in general.
Strong words. On the other hand, okay. So you do agree, to at least to a large degree, that we're using maps too much when we're talking about inequality.
I don't think we use too much maps, but I do believe that a map is a political tool. So when we are using map, we need to just have that in mind. And of course, it has some impact of what the users or people who will look at it will feel. So that's the reason I'm standing here.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But wait.
Argument, but this is exactly the reason why maps are so suitable for this discussion, because the subject is highly political.
If you're convinced, you can walk towards her.
Also, it's about the center. The answers were about the center, not about snow. No?
No, this is disagreeing that maps are overused.
The answers about our position, not exactly about.
Convince her.
Because they said sometimes we can use maps and that is good. Sometimes in some areas it's don't work.
So she's basically saying that you're overstating your position. You're basically supposed to be closer here.
Yeah.
But again, you need to open to discussion when you say map, what you're referring to.
We are talking about geographic maps, okay? So spatial maps, not like mapping of other values.
If you speak about maps, about geographical maps, I do agree that sometimes it can it suffer from special determinism, putting too much power on the special category. I do agree with that.
I must say that I think the work that you showed actually echoes a bit of how maps are deceiving, and the need for you to go into the third dimension in a way is saying like the map is not telling the whole story and kind of taking extra steps there. Just throwing it out there. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
When maps doesn't work. When map doesn't work. For example, if I search for a hotel, I will be happy to see a visualization, for example, 500 meters from the center or 600 meters from the center, that we can display on the graph, not on the map. And it will be better that see on the map.
Yeah, we're talking specifically about social inequality, though. But you could probably have translated that to that aspect as well. But enough about inequality. That's okay. Here's one. Okay. Analysts should create a TLDR and not expect designers to read their endless documents. Analysts should create a TLDR, too long, didn't read, and not expect designers to read their endless documents. This is agree. This over there is disagree. So if you stand here, you're saying, come on, all of these analysts that are throwing like tens of thousands of documents at us and expect us to read them, should at least kind of summarize them into a form that we can more easily read. Otherwise, like they shouldn't expect us to read all of it. And if you stand over here, you're saying like, no, don't expect TLDR, read the whole damn thing. Okay? Okay, that was quite a change of heart over there. Okay, let's hear from someone we haven't heard from. Here's someone who, personally, I know that she gets very long documents to read. No, okay. Okay, you stand here. You're an outlier, and you think, basically, read the documents. Don't expect anybody to do the dirty job for you.
As a designer, I would love to get a deal in too long didn't read. Yes. But to work with the technology means that you need to know it. And if you want people to talk in the same eye level, so I would expect that, like, I would like to read everything in order to, like, speak in the same language with the analyst. So I believe that we do need to give it an extra mile and read the entire document.
And does your team actually do that?
No. But they try, like when they have time.
This is interesting. Okay. You have to explain. You have to explain
I understand the position before. Of course, I agree with that. You said something about years ago they expect us to do beautiful things, but now we are part of the team and we need to deeply understand the development process. So we need to go over the documents.
But sometimes the documents are so complicated and they're written in a kind of professional language that is not necessarily for us, right?
Again, for me too, as an academic person, I read a lot of articles, and many times I don't understand everything, but I'm not quitting the reading, right? I'm putting aside things I don't understand, I'm talking with friends, I don't know, I'll check it up, but I'm continuing to read, right?
Okay, so
if the thing is about it's something that repeat all day is storytelling, I need to learn the inner language of the project and to connect myself to the inner storytelling.
Maybe that's a privilege of the academics. I'm just like kind of
the language that the text was written. Sometimes the text includes many formulas, numbers, and how you said Chinese, and we couldn't understand all information that the document includes.
So one point I have to make is more from the technical side. Like sometimes you see people hiding behind the technical paper when what you actually want to read is okay, what's your stand on this? Could you, Mr. Architect, could you give us software architect, not a physical architect, could you give us like a priority? Can you commit and say this is more important than this? And don't tell me that in a 30-page long document and say, no, you go figure it out. No, we want like this shared storytelling, as Merav called it. I think it's something like an attribute we want our team members to have. Like, okay, what's the top thing we're trying to deliver as a... You said, yeah. Tell me what it is you think your users find most useful in this technical aspect, and we're trying to infuse that into their approach.
That's very convincing, I think. That's very convincing. Okay, so you actually advocated that we should all read and immerse ourselves in the language, but you're not standing over there.
Because I think we have to meet in the middle. Because the data people, as I call them, shouldn't expect us to read. We should understand it not by reading. We should want to read, but it's not like it doesn't have to be a must. So we have to find a way in the middle. So that's.
So finding a place in the middle. If anybody has a statement that they want to suggest, think about it. I'll read another one, and then the last one can be from the audience if we have one. Okay. Let's see. VR and immersive 3D are the next frontier for visualization. VR and immersive 3D are the next frontier for visualization. If you agree, you're over here. If you disagree, you're over there.
You emphasize the, it's the, or it's one more?
I said the, but let's go with a major frontier, next frontier. A major... Okay, so I'll read again. VR and immersive 3D are a major next frontier for visualization. Okay. Paulina, you did choose this position. You don't think...
It's very cozy.
It's true. But you don't think that 3D and VR is like that relevant for the future of visualization?
When you say future, like future...
For the next steps.
3 years or like 10 years?
Next frontier is, I would say, 3 years.
No, I don't think so, because you can use it like in exhibitions, you can use it for public, but like individual at home, you can't present it to him. It's hard, like in the next 3 years, I think.
So you're talking about accessibility, like immersive technologies are not as accessible, and therefore they're not relevant as relevant yet. Okay, interesting. Anybody has anything to say about the accessibility of these technologies? Oh, surprising.
I told you in the breakout, and it is important for me to say it, that for me, as I'm a sociologist, I'm not coming from design, I'm not an architect, I'm not coming from this world. I keep thinking that it can't be that technology help us add one more dimension to the way we express ourselves, as we do in our eyes can do it, okay? We see in 3D, right? And it's nothing. I can't accept that. And the thing that we create came from the question about volume. What will happen if we give phenomena a volume? And I think the question of volume is coming from the world of 3D and VR, and it is extremely important. And I don't know if we will really make a breakout, but I think we have to try.
So the work that you showed is very spatial. It's kind of echoing in the spatial experience, like 3D spaces. Because volume can, like a bigger circle, it can represent volume. But you insist on things that are kind of spatially realistic in a way, right? Is that like? Why is that critical? Why is that immersive sense critical for visualization?
I read some papers coming from Hong Kong, Singapore, the lab in Stockholm that convinced me that the more that your visual language is based on realism, it is encourage democracy, and it's bring the simple people to take part in decision making. This is really, I'm a big fan of that. I check it out. There is a situation that residents said, no, I don't understand in map, and they push the thing out. But there are many accidents that people come and say, oh, great, this is my home, this is my school. And they feel very comfortable to locate themselves within this space. And then it is a great starting point.
And what about the point about accessibility?
It's like you buy it in 200 shekel in Yarka. It's cheap, it's there. This is why I said young people there, people from underclass out there, from different classes out there, it's really there. Like you have the thing that you can buy in 15 shekel and you put your phone and you have
cardboard,
whatever. So it's there. It's cheap, it's easy.
We'll see if next year we'll have a lot of talks that talk about VR and visualization. Anybody wants to add another thing to that point? Yes. You're not like waiting for that. You're not really waiting for that.
I'm somewhat of a 3D skeptic, but I had a startup called FlatSpace. We were the first to put out a service where you can take an architectural floor plan and automatically, using machine learning, interpret it and convert it into a 3D model where you can have a walkthrough experience. And we actually started from VR, but our potential customers very quickly took us off it. They wanted the browser, they wanted mobile. So we're not there yet for VR. So in every few years we think it's happening, but I don't think we're there yet. And for me, like the best interface we have is like a keyboard and a mouse. I don't want to do things with my hands in the air.
Let's see. Okay. So unless there's a very good statement that is going to be shared from the audience, I think we're over time. It's 6:06, so that would be a good time to conclude. So thank yous. So first of all, thank you for these guys and the other guys who couldn't stay. I really think it was the best ISVIS that we had so far. And Noah said it last year as well, but last year was before this year. But I really enjoyed it, and I think the audience enjoyed it as well. Heard really good things, and thanks for the very, very thoughtful and interesting talks. I think we'll be thinking of them for a long time now. We're also going out later. If anybody wants to join us from the audience or from the speakers, please talk to me. Beyond that, we have a couple of thank yous, and I'll read them just so I don't fuck up. Okay. So, first of all, I want to thank my partners in organizing this. So, Meira Levi and Liora Yuklea. So, thanks for all of the hard work, especially in times that I needed your help more. Yuli Tamir, the head of the school, has been very supportive of this conference from its first time, and she keeps supporting it this year, also opening it. So it's very exciting to see how this event that is all about design and engineering is getting the recognition from this institution. Thank you to Erez, Nitzan, and Nitzan, Shirley, for the production help. Who else? We have the people from the we have the people from the PR that have helped us as well, Naama and Ran, and We also want to thank our partners from Haifa University who have not been a part of this conference this year, but would probably be back from sabbatical next year and be a part of it going forward. And again, thank you to the audience that has been especially the ones who have stayed all the way through and have been underfed and underslept, but persistent. So thank you very much, and see you next year.
Thank you, Mushon.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Say it again.
Thank you, Mushon.
Okay, thank you.